Welfare concerns relating to the farming of cows concern dairy cattle, cattle raised for beef, and also cattle raised for veal. With respect to dairy cows, we have genetically selected them over many generations to be increasingly productive. This has resulted in an increase in annual milk yield of around about 2 to 3% per year for many years. This means that dairy cows today produce maybe 15 to 20 litres of milk per cow, in some cases even up to 30 litres. There's also been a tendency towards greater use of indoor housing, zero grazing systems, intensive confinement, and the use of concentrates within diets. This push towards ever-increasing productivity has placed the animals under considerable strain. This means that there are less biological resources available for other bodily functions, such as fertility, and fertility rates have been declining in recent years, such as ensuring the competence and the strength of the immune system. Now, these animals are often raised in very crowded conditions inside very large sheds where it's difficult to remove all of the manure and the urine that the animals produce, so hygiene can become quite poor. The stress of being raised in these unnatural environments and unable to fulfill many highly motivated natural behaviours can weaken the immune system. In order for these cows to produce all of this milk, it's necessary for them to be made pregnant and to give birth to a calf. And the nutritional demands for the mother are particularly high. Because these cows are being bred to be so highly productive in terms of milk output, it's actually not physically possible for some of them to take in enough daily calories to fulfill all of their nutritional requirements. So the cows during this transition period between the last part of pregnancy and the first part of lactation experience chronic ongoing hunger, which is a major welfare concern. The rates of diseases such as reproductive problems, failure to conceive, mastitis, the inflammation of the udders, lameness, have actually been increasing. So the rates of these problems, according to some surveys, are up to 26% on some farms in the United Kingdom. Lameness is perhaps the most serious animal welfare problem for dairy cattle. It can cause severe pain in the later stages. It can cause decreased mobility, cattle spending less time feeding, a decrease in milk production. Older cubicles within sheds may not be actually large enough for these cows to be able to stand up comfortably. If they hit the furnishings on their way up or are unable to swing their heads properly, they can damage themselves as they stand up. The surfaces in the sheds are important. Hard surfaces like concrete are more likely to cause lameness. Herd sizes are increasing, but staff numbers aren't necessarily increasing as much. So the farmers are busier and they don't have time to monitor the individual animals as much as is needed. So actually many cases of lameness go undetected. And it's thought that the prevalence of lameness on UK farms is probably about 25%. Most cattle breeds are born with horns. It's commonly believed by producers that the horn breeds are more productive. They tend to grow quicker, put on more muscle mass and produce more beef. Accordingly, these are chosen. However, the horns present a risk in terms of increased risk of carcass damage and a risk to the stock people and the handlers. So it's common practice to actually dehorn. Now this can involve removing the horn butts via crude surgical instruments, by using a hot iron, or by using caustic chemical pastes. All of these methods are acutely painful, and in all cases it's appropriate to provide local anaesthetics, which will last typically for 1 to 2 hours, as well as a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug which will last for a much longer period, as well as a sedative. Unfortunately, however, these drugs are often not given. Another invasive husbandry procedure is tail docking. There's a common perception amongst some producers that leaving the tails intact can result in the tails becoming soiled with fecal material. Cutting the tails off is a procedure that results in quite severe acute or short-term pain and can result in chronic ongoing pain as well. Studies have demonstrated no benefits in terms of improved hygiene or rates of mastitis when cattle are docked. Other painful husbandry procedures that farm cows are often subjected to include castration and hot iron branding or freeze branding, and all of these are also acutely painful. Male calves, unfortunately, are often shot soon after birth, or they may sometimes be raised as veal calves. These calves are unable to move very much and they're fed a nutritionally restricted milk replacer. Veal crates have been banned in the European Union in 2007. However, their use does persist in some other regions of the world. Within the European Union, male calves may be raised for meat in groups as so-called bobby calves. The drive for ever-increasing productivity of dairy cows and cattle raised for beef has resulted in a range of serious animal welfare concerns, and the persistence of a range of invasive husbandry techniques without the use of painkillers is ethically unconscionable.